G Panda Boo.
Yo, welcome people. Welcome again. You're in tune to the Triggered Thoughts podcast. And I'm one of your hosts, Verbz. My other host goes by the name of Geniusdan. Back again for another episode. We're still committing to the cause, which is a great thing. And yeah, how are the listeners doing? Hope the listeners that are listening are okay. Hope you're all good. Everything's been nice. Everything's been tranquil, peaceful. You know, as less stress as possible. If anything, no stress. That's the best thing. You know what I mean? Just to make the listeners aware that myself and Geniusdan, we've been discussing what topic we're gonna shed light on today. And I think this one is particularly important, really important. There's a few people bringing awareness to circumstances, but the light hasn't been shed on it enough, and enough hasn't been done to sort of minimize or conquer the problem. So the subject matter we're going to be talking about today, which me and Geniusdan have happily agreed to talk about, is domestic violence.
Yeah.
You know, Mr. Geniusdan, what's your thoughts on domestic violence? How do you feel about doing this subject today? Let the listeners know.
It needs addressing. It's happening far too much. People are losing their lives, and obviously the majority of domestic violence, from obviously the findings and things that are posted, is the kings. And don't get me wrong, it's not about just gaslighting or highlighting one particular gender, but it's happening with both sexes. So it's happening with the males and the females. So domestic violence is happening, in both parties, and it's unacceptable. Period. Whether you're a man or whether you're a woman, whether the man is hitting the woman, it's unacceptable. If it's the woman hitting the man, it's unacceptable. And from what I'm seeing, this situation it's like an epidemic now. It's getting out of hand. I don't feel that the government are doing anything about it. I don't feel that the police are doing enough about it. There's been, from my observations, a lot of failings from the police side in terms of them derailing the situation or dealing with the situation effectively enough to the point where there's no loss of life. From what I've seen so far, there's been a lot of failings where the police have actually been under investigation, where there's been lawsuits that have been brought to the police, to the point where the families are not accepting what's happened. They're blaming the police because they're saying the police could have done a lot more in terms of preventing loss of life, meaning that there's things they could have done. They could have dealt with it more professionally, because they should be fully trained in dealing with situations like that. If someone gets taken away, or do you see what I mean? It doesn't get to the stage where after the police have gone, it's escalated, someone's lost their life. You see what I mean? And for me, I just feel that it's a lot of stuff is it's not getting addressed, and it's happening regularly now. The loss of, you're getting women that are pregnant for some of these kings that are dying. Some of these guys, they're killing children, they're taking out generations, man. It's sad. Some people cannot accept when a relationship is over. They take it to another level of now killing that person and killing that person's new partner. If anyone has that kind of mindset where if a relationship doesn't work out, then they're going to go to the extreme, that these sort of people should not be involved in any kind of relationship, period. I don't care who you are. If you're that type of person where that you could potentially break up with this person and you can't handle that, or you can't handle the fact that this person has moved on, then you shouldn't be in a relationship, period. Because I'm seeing some of these guys, driving down to their partners, and they're shooting them dead. And some of them are even shooting the dad, or killing the kid. It's madness. I don't know. It's not the kind of mindset I would ever want to understand. I'm not trying to understand that. That's what I mean. Because for me, I feel that the penalty for people that go to that sort of extreme, it should be the D penalty. Obviously, I have to be careful, because obviously, with the algorithms now. You don't want to be. It could be deemed as trying to promote sort of, like not,
mm,
yeah. So I'm just trying to
yeah,
be, yeah. So the D penalty. That's what I feel that there needs to be serious consequences to the point where if a person will think twice, unless they really don't care, but they'll think twice before, going to that extreme. But there needs to be tougher laws, tougher sentences. Some people need to be made an example of because it's a very horrible thing when you see the mothers crying. I saw one woman, man, and my heart, went out to her because I'm not even trying to be a hypocrite because she turned around and said, "I hope you die." And like it's not for me to say, "Oh, how could you?" The woman knows, yeah, what she's experienced. You've taken my daughter. I hope someone, does you in jail. Now this is
mm,
someone that's really hurt, and I'm not here to say, "Oh, no," she knows what she's going through. She birthed that child. Does that mean? And then just to know that someone has taken your child now, man. Yeah, there needs to be some serious consequences for them type of people, man. I don't care who they are. That behavior there is not gangster. That behavior there is coward. You know what I mean? You're a coward,
mm.
man. So I mean, I don't feel that any man should be putting his hands on a woman and vice versa. Does that mean if you're in a relationship and there's people are putting hands on feet, you not meant to be together, man. I don't care how much you claim you love each other. That's not love, man. Love don't operate like that. Love don't behave like that. You know what I mean? It
Mm.
don't operate like that. And I'm hearing a lot of it, man. People, girlfriend slapping, punching, boyfriend punching, girlfriend breaking jaw, black eyes, broken leg. I've seen some stuff, cause from a lot of the videos. I'm like,
Yeah,
wow. And I know, yeah, there's no way, that I'd be, my missus would never, straight up, anything like that. This her sign of any sort of domestic violence, she's gone, straight up. She's gone. She
so she
kept it
should be.
100. Yeah, she's gone. She's not, she, there's no way I'm gonna, be around. Because if you hit, the saying is like, if you've done it once, you can do it again. And
Mm,
there's a lot of women, they stay in these domestic violence relationship because sometimes it's intimidation, it's threats. I sometimes genuinely believe they do love the partner. The partner gives them false hope. Oh, honey, I'll change. I'm sorry. I just get angry. I'll get help. Happens again. Happens again. Sorry doesn't always make things better. It never resolves the issue. Does that what I mean? If you're genuinely sorry, and your actions should weigh up with your sorry, meaning that you don't do that again. You see what I mean? But it's sad
mm.
to say, man. Like once you put your hand on a woman, man, there's potential that it can happen again.
Yeah, a lot of people think that domestic violence is just physical. But I remember doing
Mm,
some work into this and some training and stuff, and I remember they said that domestic violence is like is it psychological, emotional, physical, and what's the other one? There's another one, financial.
mm,
Yeah, though that's domestic violence covers
mm,
those four things now, and I think one of the key things for I think women especially because let's be real, domestic violence affects both genders, but it's safe to say that it's predominantly women that are victims of domestic violence,
mm,
by a higher margin. We have to be honest. And I think
yeah.
one thing that I say when I speak to women, and for the listeners out there that may be about to embark in a new relationship and they're not sure or whatever, I think it's key not to rush into a relationship without doing your homework first. That's number
Mm,
one. And the 4 points that I've said about domestic violence, once you understand them, if you try to
mm,
understand the process of domestic violence as well, because I think a lot of people think that domestic violence just starts off with the physical, but what happens
mm,
is the emotional and the psychological starts first. So that person sort of rules you into need them. And when they rule you into need them, they will potentially encourage you to move away from your family and your friends. So they'll break you away from your family unit. You know, you might move somewhere else out of town and say, "Oh, it's better here," but they're trying to pull you away. When you're, um, a distance away from your family members and stuff like that, it starts off with, I would say, Like, basically, once he's got you in that position, or the person's got you in that position, they start to tell you that you need them and you can't do better without them.
Mm.
Do you know what I mean? And when they start to do that, you could be in a strong position where you don't believe it. But if you live with that person, especially if they're the breadwinner, and they tell you that every single day, at some point it might just get in your head.
Mm.
You can make something beautiful feel like it's an ugly duckling if you program it on a daily basis with that source of information and making them believe that they're not pretty. I've taken you on board. You'll never get better than me. You're lucky you're here with me. Does that make
Mm.
sense?
Yeah.
And then I think after that process, once they've got you in that psychological headlock,
Mm.
then the physicals start. And I think if you understand, or the listeners out there, or any women that may be about to get into a new relationship or have been in that type of relationship, and they think back, they'd understand that that process is how you get there and you get stuck. Because a lot of people think, oh, why don't you just leave and stuff
Mm.
like that, which we would like to say and we'd all hope all of the women could leave or all of the victims could leave. But when you're psychologically stuck or you're psychologically trapped in a relationship, it's very hard to move your body against where your head is.
Mm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And I think once you understand that process and you take your time to get to know a man, you find out all his links, his history, or could be a man with a woman, whatever. You might be able to work out, you might see a few red flags, and then it might be the conscious decision, even if you say, you know what, maybe I'm exaggerating here, but I think I've seen evidence that that person has slapped one ex-girlfriend. That
Mm.
one red flag might be enough for you to say, you know what, I'm not getting involved. Potentially, you could be saving your life.
Mm.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think it's crucial for people to understand that because it's not easy. I've supported women in domestic violence and helped them flee to, refugee hostels and stuff like that
Mm.
with their children and stuff. And I did support working in schools, and
That's
I've
good,
seen
man.
where yeah, man, where I've helped women get away, and lo and behold, and you help them get away, and you told them, because they've decided, it's not me forcing them, they've decided they want to do it. I've just helped them follow their wish. And
Mm.
I've told them, it's hard, but stick to just building your new life here. You're not really going to have nothing much, but you're in a new location. Take your time, don't get stuck on the fact that you're in the middle of nowhere and you don't know nobody. And this is how you're going to feel for a bit. You'll start building links, things will unfold, opportunities will present itself the longer you stick with it. But then, of
Yeah.
course, they get bored. Then the psychological side kicks in, even though the person that they're with is nowhere near them, and they
Mm.
contact them or use the kids, say, oh, you know what? Kids haven't spoken to their dad. I'm going to get them to call their dad, but the dad ain't speaking to me. But they know what they're doing, and then they end up going back.
Yeah.
Do
That's
you
what
know
they
what I
do all
mean?
the time. Yeah.
And it can be very frustrating when you're a person helping somebody in a situation like that. But at the same time, you have to have enough empathy to recognize they're not
Mm.
really in control. They're pretty vulnerable.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Rather than take it
Yeah.
personal and get mad,
Mm.
you know? What about the kids? There's a lot of kids that's been affected by domestic violence. What's your take on that?
Boy, once again, unacceptable, man. Unacceptable. You know, and I feel that sometimes the children get caught in the crossfire,
Mm,
where even they even witness the domestic violence. They witness, the hitting, the. It's terrible. It shouldn't happen, man. You know.
mm,
So yeah, it's just really finding a solution to this.
yeah. For the listeners as well, I think Genius Danners, if he wants to plug his social media page, but Genius Dan has been doing a lot of work voluntarily, raising awareness with domestic violence. Just give the listeners a breakdown on, what you've been doing on your social media page. Maybe you might
Yeah.
want to
So,
tell them your name and stuff like that, where they could follow you and so on and so forth.
yeah. So my Facebook name is Daniel Genius Dan. And, I'm quite controversial. I post up, loads of different things, but I'd say for the last few weeks, I've been bringing attention on this domestic violence because I think it's a massive problem, especially in the States. We have it obviously over here as well, and obviously in other countries, but it's happening an awful lot in America. I've spoken to some people, they're very concerned, in the States. A few people have sent me DMs telling me stuff that they've experienced either themselves or their families are going through, and a lot of them they want justice, they want awareness, they want solution to this problem. One sister Taryn said, one queen said that it would be why is there no sort of marches? But she had a very good valid point. No marches, no demonstration. Like she said, there's what's happening, and none of this is happening. And once again, I don't think it's being taken seriously.
That's
You
true.
know,
I haven't thought about that.
she mentioned something about there was the Million Man March, the Farrakhan March and other stuff, but Black Lives Matter. But what about the march, for women that are going through domestic violence, which I think is a key thing. You know, I can talk this talk. I don't hit women, man. That's what I mean. That's not my that's never been in my DNA. That's what I
Me
mean.
either.
You know.
Thank God.
But yeah, it's sad, man. It's sad. I think what it is as well, a lot of these guys that are doing this, they need to really think about, their actions. And because I know for a fact if, someone was to do that to what they're doing to these women, if someone was to do that to their daughter or do that to their mum, they're gonna want to be, oh, I'll do this, I'll do this, what I mean? So, when
Yeah.
sometimes, and this is why, karma's a real thing. Some people call it karma. I don't really like using that word. I call it, God's appointed time.
We like that.
So yeah, sometimes, man, we have to be really careful what we do in life because sometimes a lot of these men do these stuff, but they don't realize they might have children, they might have girl child, and then all that stuff you've been doing, you might not get your just dessert, but it might end up falling back on your children. So we have to be very careful, man, what we do in life. You see what I mean?
Most definitely.
Sometimes, yeah, we do stuff and we may escape, we may get forgiveness and stuff, but it doesn't escape the consequences of what we've done. The damage is still done, so you still have to pay. Like, God will forgive you, but for the actions and for what you've done, you've got to pay. Does that what I mean? So it's
Mm.
yeah, for every action there's a reaction. Does that what I mean? So yeah, man,
Mm.
we have to really really know what we're doing out there, man. And we need to, if we're one of those people that are, quick to put hands on women, we should not be in any sort of relationship period. You need to
Mm.
do, any sort of mental health. You need to do with yourself, do with your behaviors, your character. That's what I mean. You need to really, because if we're honest, we all know what we're capable of. We all know our weak points, our strong points, the stuff that we're capable of.
Mm.
You know what I mean? And if we know that we're someone that's prone to, hitting women or domestic violence, or we've got anger issue, we need to get those stuff addressed. We need to deal with those things. There's programs out there. And it's sad to say, yeah, there's women that have been going through domestic violence for years. Some of these people are married, they got kids. Some of these guys, man, they don't have no respect for themselves. They're beating the women in front of the kids. The kids are growing up, and then and then as they grow up, they see that mum's putting, dad's putting his hand on mum. They grow up now thinking it's acceptable behavior. Then they end up hitting their women, and then it goes on. It's what I mean. It becomes like a generational thing now. It's what I
Mm.
mean. A generation of women
Handed
beaters.
poor
Yeah,
down, poor
yeah, yeah,
behavior.
man. Yeah,
Mm.
man. Yeah,
Mm.
man. It's sad, man. And like a lot of people see, that do these things. It's embarrassing, man. That's what I mean. It's embarrassing. And I've always said to people, look, if a woman's gonna, draw you out to the point where, you feel, just walk away, man. I'm not saying you stand there and let a woman hit you up. No, you hold her hands, but you don't, you just you to stop, any sort of harm that's being done, but you don't retaliate back. And is that what I mean? You hold the
Yeah.
hands and stop them from hitting you, but you don't hit, punch them back. And no, you don't. That's what I mean. You
Yeah,
walk away from the situation, man.
you can't hit them like that.
Yeah.
You're absolutely right. But at the same time, I am aware, and this isn't me excusing domestic violence in no way, shape, or form, because I'm
Mm,
absolutely against it. But
mm,
there is women out there that do take the actual piss when it
mm,
comes to the safety net of knowing that a man shouldn't hit them, but they
mm,
put their hands on men in argument for sport.
mm,
And that also needs to stop, because if we want to pick at it a little bit more, that's domestic violence. If you're putting your hands on somebody and you shouldn't, you're abusing that factor.
yeah, straight up.
Do you know what I mean?
Mm,
One might say, oh, the man's stronger, so it doesn't matter, but forget all of that. If you're putting your hands
mm,
on somebody and it's not necessary, it's not justified, you're not
mm,
under threat, you're not defending yourself, you're just doing it because you're angry, you've lost control and you can, then you're probably, committing an act of domestic violence,
mm,
you know. But at the same time, you're right. As men, you're supposed to know the significant difference between the strength of you as a man
mm,
and the woman. And if that woman's lost control, then you should be able to check yourself and say, maybe this ain't the woman for me. And you may just have to hold her hands or pin her down in a safe way to make sure she can't hit you anymore while you get
mm,
out. But then you need to get out. You can't pin her down and then go and sit down in the other room and watch the television. Do you know what I
mm.
mean? Doesn't make no sense. You need to get yourself out of there. That's intervention, isn't it?
Yeah, it's true.
Do you know what I mean?
Mm,
So, you know, men and women are just as, no, I don't say just as bad. Men and women are guilty of putting hands on each other, but men definitely go too far and do it for
mm,
fun and control women and are insecure and, just try to control a woman's every move and every bit of life and, you know, like
mm,
almost like they're holding a woman captive.
mm.
Do you know what I mean? And that needs to stop. Unfortunately, the reality of no matter how much awareness we bring to the subject matter, I don't think it's going to stop. It might decrease, but I
Mm.
think educating women is key. Do you know what I mean? I think
Yeah,
getting women that have been a victim of domestic violence and getting them to maybe sit down or I don't know, write books, do workshops or
yeah,
anything where they can share the message of the process of how it happened and make women aware of the first step when they realize something was wrong. They saw a red flag, but they may have ignored it because they wanted to choose to have a positive attitude towards that person. I didn't want to judge them, so I overlooked it. And then it went from bad
yeah.
to worse. You
Mm,
doing stuff like that, even if you did one workshop in your life, if that
mm,
workshop's got 20 women sitting in there listening to you,
mm.
you may save half of those women from potentially stepping in that type of relationship.
Yeah, definitely.
You know what I mean?
Definitely. Yeah, definitely.
So it's very important, you know.
Mm,
Um, and then even like the kids and stuff. Again, I've supported kids that's been in domestic violence or belong to families where they got parents that are yeah involved in domestic violent relationship.
mm,
And it's not pretty, man. Like I've supported kids where they've got like psychological issues, emotional issues, self-esteem issues. It's like they're in their shell. Do you know what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
like this, they're really they move like they're on eggshells. Like if I piss off dad by asking him for some orange juice at the wrong time, he's gonna beat me up like I see him beat up my mum.
Yeah, it's
Do you know what
mad.
I mean? I even
Yeah.
worked with a family once where they had to have like I had to teach them what's it called? Like a safety plan if it
Oh, for
happened.
real?
Yeah, like the dad used to beat up the mum, but then the mum
Mm,
got rid of the dad through the police and stuff.
mm,
It wasn't enough evidence, but they honored her wish some way, somehow, and he removed himself from the house. I think he knew that his wife was gonna call the police on him often. He would have got nicked, so he left. But he turned
mm,
up here and there and was standing on the drive, and the kids used to get scared. So I had to teach them a plan where it was three kids, two
oh,
brothers,
wow.
one sister, and I taught
Mm,
the older brother to lead the way and like basically encourage the other kids to go upstairs and they all go under the bed and cover their ears. You get me?
Yeah.
And that was just a way of making sure they were safe and they didn't hear nothing that would have traumatized them even more because they were seriously traumatized, man.
Mm.
So we were supporting with them with that, with counseling and therapy and all that kind of stuff. But in the meantime, when this man come, in order to make the counseling and the therapy work, we had to make sure that these kids didn't see or hear anymore. So obviously, mum was instructed not to answer the door, which she didn't. But the dad might
Mm.
do things like swear and shout from outside the house, and if the kids heard it, it would trigger them.
Mm.
Do you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
it's a very sensitive subject, and there's a lot of kids that are, yeah, going
Yeah.
through these bullshit episodes. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah. So, what would you say is the solution for this going forward?
I just think, like I said, I just think all we can do is try and bring as much awareness to it as possible. I feel a bit embarrassed at the fact that, the point that you made earlier in terms of nobody's marching about stuff like this. I mean, we damn near march about everything nowadays, don't we?
Yeah.
And
Sure.
yeah, when you
Sure.
said it, it made me think, oh, you know what? I never thought about that, and it's true. Like,
Yeah.
that's one of the big things we should be
Yeah.
marching for because we've all got
Yeah.
mums, sisters, aunties,
Yeah.
cousins that are female, whatever not. We all care. We don't want it to happen to our family members. So
Yeah.
why
It's
is there
true.
not, a greater effort to bring awareness and challenge the police? Because if we want to go deeper,
Mm.
if you're talking about, all right, I can only speak for when I've been existing, but if you speak about like the 1980s, 1990s, let's just say up to the 2000s, yeah, the police
Yeah.
had a very poor attitude towards domestic violence.
Mm.
So when women would come in, with an alleged situation that they've been hurt or with evidence, they might have bruises or whatever. The police would say
Yeah.
that they're going to follow up and they're going to do this and they're going to do that. And a lot of the times they never did because they couldn't be bothered because
Oh,
they
yeah.
didn't respect women. Um,
Mm.
you know, Fast forward now, 2023, where we got the internet and all sorts and all these different arrays of deeper training and all that for all these people in the employment industry.
Yeah.
And they've still got a pretty poor attitude towards domestic violence. And if we want to dig deep and understand why that is, do you remember that recent report or coverage of the Metropolitan Police in different boroughs around the UK and the alarming amount of police officers that was investigated for or had cases of domestic violence, rape, sexual abuse,
Yeah.
battery, all kinds of stuff in
Yeah. That's
still
mad.
working in the force.
Yeah. That's mad.
So if we've got that
Mm.
in a force that's supposed to protect society, yeah, and women are victims of that. Let's give another example. I forgot the name of those two sisters. I'm sure it was during lockdown. Don't quote me. But listeners, you must know this as well. Them two sisters, one was black, one was mixed race,
Mm.
and they were found dead in a park in London.
Oh wow.
Do you remember that?
No,
Two
how
sisters
long?
was their bodies was in a park, and the police were called about the bodies being in the park. And when the police went to the park, you know what they done?
No.
Took pictures of the bodies with their faces in there, selfies.
Oh yes, I've heard about that. Yeah.
You remember
Yeah. Yeah.
that?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
posted it
Yeah.
on WhatsApp and stuff. And the and
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
the,
Yeah. 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 Heard about that.
the
Yeah.
sister's mum just literally just had to go at them. Said, "How dare they?"
Yeah.
Which rightly
Imagine.
so. If you can do that when two sisters are in a park,
Mm.
you as the police come and the first thing you think is, "Let me post pictures
Yeah.
with my face
Sensational,
in there of
man.
the two bodies on the floor." Then when you post it, you're using words like nigger and all
Mhm.
these disrespectful words.
That's
How
mad.
can you protect women, bruv?
It's true.
Do you get me?
Yeah, it's true.
Police ain't gonna, if you've got those kind of scumbags in the Metropolitan Police,
Mm.
how are women gonna be safe?
Yeah, straight up.
How can women turn to you? And British media has led us to believe that these police officers care. But
Mm.
I'm not being funny. I'm not saying that all of the officers are like that because that would be pushing it a bit too far. But from
Mm.
those reports, there's a lot.
Yeah, that's concerning, man.
There's a lot
Yeah,
of them.
yeah, and even a lot of them are pedos as well.
There you go. So at the end of the day, if you've got these people in the police force, ordinary people, manage to train, got their life experiences, we all say the same saying that a lot of police officers used to get bullied in school,
Mm.
and now they've come out and decided they want to be in a force where they can take matters into their own hands. That's not always the case, but there's probably an element of that they want to now be protectors of society or wear a badge that gives them the powers that be to handle things the way they want to handle things. You know,
Yeah.
you've got these kind of guys out on the street with all kinds of shit under their name that the police have swept under the carpet. I mean, all right. Let's give you another example now. Let's cut to this one now. Sarah Everard,
Name rings a bell.
the one that got killed around the Clapham area
Okay, yes.
by the off-duty police officer.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yes,
All right.
yes.
So that geezer, listeners, if you remember, that geezer was off duty. He approached her. I'm sure he was wearing uniform. I can't say exactly, but I'm sure he was wearing uniform. But he had approached her and said that made an inquiry, approached her and said that she needed to come with him. So he detained her. Basically, I think he put her in cuffs. Or he got her in the car anyway. Then he raped her and he killed her. But prior to that, this guy's got a history because he was in a McDonald's and he exposed his genitalia in the McDonald's. They called the police. Yeah. When they called the police, obviously the people didn't know that he was an officer, the people in the McDonald's. But when the police come, they knew he was an officer, and they escorted him out quietly and basically just, mate, behave yourself, blah, blah, blah. Just keep yourself out of there, mate. Do you know what I mean? So basically they saved him from being exposed and he was able to carry on being an officer.
This is what goes on, man. It's corruption, boy.
So when you hear those two examples that I give you, how can any female have faith in the police to protect them from the very men that have the mentality that some of the officers that you work with or the officers in your force have got the same characteristics and behavior?
Yeah, valid point. Yeah, it's true. That's a good point.
Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's a good point.
I'm not a fan of the police. Obviously, we need them to some extent, but I'm not necessarily a fan of them. I don't know if I'd go as far as to say defund them and stuff like that, but I just think the whole police force, especially when it comes to domestic violence, especially when it comes to racial injustice, I just think the whole police force needs to be like gutted out like a fish. When you cut its belly open and pull out all of the guts, throw it away, and I don't know, rebuild some new guts with different working mechanisms that are more up to date, and let the fish live off of that system. That's what the police force needs to go through, because it's outdated, it's prejudice, it's racist, it's sexist. Their whole system is old school Britannia, and it needs to change because it's not benefiting nobody properly.
It's true.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's true.
So, yeah, I don't know, man. It's we just got to bring awareness. I think bringing awareness. I think women stepping forward, even men, if they've got like, I don't know how women would feel about that, but if men have family members or parents that they knew or were victims, and they could give accounts of what they saw as children growing up, what it done to them. Everybody that's involved just needs to bring awareness. And do we even have like a domestic violence week or day or anything like that?
I don't think we do,
I haven't seen it.
No, I don't think we do. We don't.
You know what I mean? But we got shit like no panty week and that.
Yeah, no.
Can you imagine?
Yeah, a madness.
Well, I think maybe it might be a thing like creating a movement that brings in like a anti-domestic violence week or something.
Definitely, I agree with you, man.
Yeah, I mean,
that's something that needs to be put forward. Yeah,
definitely.
Yeah, straight up.
Definitely, because at the end of the day, it's not nice. There's ladies out here that are trying to live their life, trying to be a better half for somebody. Somebody's taking advantage of that. In the midst of taking advantage of that, the levels of trauma and
Yeah.
anxiety you give that person in the midst of, using domestic violence against them, you now put them in a position where they're not even stable enough or confident enough to be a parent when you've gone.
It's true.
Do you know what I mean?
Yep.
You've literally destroyed them. That's going to take years of therapy and healing and reflection and all of this stuff, rebuilding. I mean, God forbid if it's got that far where the woman's got life-changing injuries or visible injuries that just can't go away. Do you know what I mean?
Mm.
As a result of it can happen. It happens.
Yeah.
It happens. Look at the what's that girl? The lady, I forgot what her name is. The one she's like a host now, and she got the acid thrown in her face.
Oh, you're not talking about. Oh, is it the one in a domestic?
Is it something Piper or something?
Is that where she left the relationship and then he kept ringing and threatening her? That one.
Yeah, and then he sent a friend that she didn't recognize to come over and just throw the thing in her face in the middle of the street or something.
Lord, yeah, there's so many of them I've seen, because
So,
there's
and you
loads.
know how much years of reconstruction, because she looks quite decent now,
Mm.
Not, and I don't mean that in no disrespectful way, because people might look at that and say, "How dare you?" It's not about her looks. It's definitely not. But I'm saying, like, seeing where she was in the beginning, how disfigured her face was, no fault of hers, and then seeing where she is now, years later, she's almost probably close to what I would say she might feel confident in her appearance again. But that's taken years
Yeah,
of work.
for real.
And we can only imagine, obviously, that's going and laying down and let surgeons doing what they have to get you to that place. Then you go home and you heal. We can only imagine the amount of therapy she must have been doing behind the scenes alongside that.
It's true. She's true, because
Can you imagine if somebody walked up to you and threw acid in your face? Like, no matter how strong you are, how are you gonna feel when you go outside again? You'd probably be like flinching every minute when someone comes near you.
It's true.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's true.
So I give credit to women like her, and I think they're a breath of fresh air to domestic violence victims out there, that see that although shit happens, you can overcome. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's true, because it's true.
But it shouldn't have happened in the first place. That's the whole bastard thing about it.
And that's why awareness is needed,
There you go. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, and just obviously before we go, for those that are in a relationship that's where they experience domestic violence, I hope that you will find the courage and the strength to seek help, come out of that relationship, or even even reach out to myself, on social media. But don't suffer in silence. The worst thing you can do, and if you have children, you're obligated to do your utmost. It's not fair on them as well. As well as it's not fair on you. It's not fair on the children. Get help. Don't suffer in silence. Reach out. Go and stay with a relative. Go and stay with a friend. But don't continue to stay in a relationship like that where you could potentially lose your life. It's not worth it. We only live once. Yeah?
Very well said.
Yeah.
That was beautiful, man. We like that. All right, then we'll catch you again next week. Have a good one.